my peeps, and welcome back to Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves. We are over halfway through Season 2! I am still your host, Ike, and before we get too far underway, I'd like to just say thanks for being here and helping my dreams come true and giving this podcast a listen. I appreciate that you chose to take this time and give me and my guest your ears. Now, if you still have time, after you've enjoyed the episode, of course, please share this with somebody who you think would like it, or just subscribe yourself if you already haven't. That would mean a lot. So I've got some crazy news to drop on you guys this week. I am officially quit my last job being a substitute teacher, more like a help to another teacher, but technically an in-house substitute teacher at the charter school in South Central Los Angeles, and I'm now going to be a tutor at a school up in Pasadena. This, I think, is a much better fit for me, and incidentally, I get paid a little bit more, but that is technically underway. I am recording this on a Sunday, and I go to work at my new job tomorrow. So, excited and scared, and all that's wrapped up in there. Also, as of, 16 hours ago, I won a big Magic tournament to qualify for a bigger Magic tournament in Dallas in, I think, like June or July. So qualified yet again, and very much, continuing my stepping towards trying to play as high level Magic as I possibly can. So very excited with that. And it was pretty awesome. Kyler Martin, friend and guest of the podcast, continues to be my lucky rabbit's foot of a Magic travel partner. I might have to pay him to come to more tournaments with me, so I always crush. Thanks, Kai. Appreciate you coming with me, bud. But yeah, so those two big things happened in the last couple of days, so I'm running on very much a life high at the moment. I'm sure it'll come crashing down here in a minute, but in the interim, just kind of, riding on the top of the wave. Super cool. Yeah, it's great. Hope y'all are enjoying the weather out there. It's been really rainy here the last couple weeks in Los Angeles. I don't know about how it is in the rest of the world, but we have been a lot of torrential downpouring. Luckily it hasn't affected my area or my living too much, but I know a lot of people have, bigger potholes, literal flooding. Luckily I haven't had to deal with any of that, but to all those out there affected, hope you're okay. Feel free to send me your, experiences. Reach out. Love to talk to any of y'all other LAites. I don't know what the correct term is there. But you can find me at Like Ike Productions, or at Like Ikes, I think. I should know what my own Twitter handle is. So it's Like Ikes, at Like Ikes. And you'll find me. Feel free to tweet at me there. I'd love to, talk or hear from you, or you can email me at passionandpeevespodcast@gmail.com. It's easier to forget, but easier to also spell. Sorry, they're not the exact same. So this week, if my memory serves, we have CHRIS CLINE, who was recommended to us by Colin Bevis. So thank you for coming on, CHRIS CLINE. Thank you for recommending him, Colin. We had a great time talking about many fun things, some of which Magic related, some of which not. But yeah, so please stick around and enjoy my awesome and fun interview with Chris. Good day, everyone. Today I've got a friend of Colin Bevis, a man of magic, a master of mutts, a knower of Nebelungs, and an all-around generally talentless dude. Please put your hands together and give a warm welcome to CHRIS CLINE!
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. How are we doing this fine day, my guy?
Hey, cannot complain. The weather's great. It's a little bit chilly. And, yeah, just kind of hanging out inside today, so.
All right, well, that's all good, but I'm going to hit you with a hard-hitting question.
Ready.
What's your favorite movie line that you like to quote for no reason at all?
Favorite movie line that I like to quote for no reason at all. It's got to be something from either Tropic Thunder.
Oh, yeah.
Just because that movie's so incredibly quotable. Or, oh man, The Turtle Club. You remember that? From Master of Disguise?
Oh.
Are you turtly enough for the Turtle Club?
Turtly enough for my Turtle Club?
That's exactly right. Yeah, turtly enough for the Turtle Club always gets me, even though that movie is otherwise
Hot
disregarded.
garbage. Yeah. Well, since you brought up Tropic Thunder, you remind me of my first movie date. Do you remember your first date movie?
No, I don't. But for some reason, I will always remember the last movie that I saw with my mom, because it was Big Mama's House 3. And I was like, what a ridiculous movie, you know? But I can't even tell you what my face. I've been married for 4 years. I've been dating my wife for 8 years, and no idea what our first date was. But I will always remember Big Mama's House 3.
Is there a genre, actor, director that you like to go to for date movies as a married man?
Weirdly enough, I'm not a big movie person. And I will always say I don't like rewatching movies until I find a movie that you just really love and you're okay watching it. So, genre of movie,
or
I don't know.
I mean, if there's a movie that you like rewatching, it sounds like you've got a couple in the holster that's, it's movie night, we're watching this again.
Yeah. Weirdly enough, a lot of times they're like just feel-good movies. So I love The Emperor's New Groove.
Oh, yeah.
Just because it's just a silly, simple
Banger.
movie.
Banger
Yeah, exactly right. And there's a couple of mystery movies that I've liked. I think some of the Netflix shows that have come out recently with Ryan Reynolds, just because that guy is just a caricature of himself, have been pretty good. So what's that one he's in with The Rock? Like Red Notice or something like
Notice.
that? That's the
I'm
one?
glad
Yeah.
somebody liked it. Apparently most people didn't. I didn't get around to seeing it.
I thought it was cute. Ryan
Nice.
Reynolds is in it, right? So, like, what do you want? And then Free Guy has been a family. I've got 5 people in my house right now, so it's all about what the family wants to watch.
Yeah.
So when that kind of thing's going
sure.
on, hey, what do we do there?
That's awesome. No, it's like, at the end of the day, that's what a movie, you found the core of what a movie should do, is just like leave you in the state that you want to be left in. So you want to be left, the whole entire crowd pleased, and like you're finding that's fantastic.
Yeah, I did. One of my buddies is a movie critic, or at least was in his former life, essentially, and spent a long time being an editor and putting out reviews for movies. So he would always get me in to see movie premieres of like smaller movies when they would have them at the Alamo, which I think there's an Alamo Draft House in LA. Yeah,
there is. Yeah.
There is. Yeah. So. I think it started in Austin or San Antonio, one of the two, and it was bigger for movie premieres. I really hope it started in
Texas, otherwise that feels
disingenuous. Right, yeah. So we got to see some movies early, and that was pretty cool. And one of the movies I'll never forget that it wasn't a premiere, but he got me in to see was The Conjuring 2.
Oh, wild.
And that movie is only notable because I could not watch it with my eyes open. I had to like look through my hands, do the little hand covering face. It was scary to me. And there was a guy sitting next to me who had brought his much younger date with him to see this movie, and he is laughing, right? Like he's having a good time. He's doing the classic put your arm around me, honey, it's going to be okay, right? He's got that whole vibe going. And then all of a sudden a jump scare comes that nobody saw coming because you thought it was going to come from one place and then it came from another. Mm-hmm. And this man, I'm going to use this word. I'm too old to use this word, but he yeeted. It's the only appropriate word. His popcorn into the air about 5 feet, and it fell all over everybody in front of him because he was so scared, and he lost his whole cool guy, schmoozing right there. Yeah. And then I got to laugh, but I think everybody did. Everybody, kind of laughed, and it kind of lightened the mood when that guy just threw his popcorn because he's got the classic silk shirt on, 3 buttons undone. You know what I'm saying? Chest hair out, right? He is macho manning it up, and then here he is throwing his popcorn 5 feet in the air, and It was
That's
a good
awesome.
time. It was a good time.
That is comedy perfection. I hope he was a plant. I hope that
I know. Right.
The theater like paid him like, all right, we need some brevity in this movie. It's too scary.
Everybody will have a memory experience from The Conjuring 2.
For this. It's so great. What's your favorite comedy? One moment, The Conjuring 2.
Right.
Alamo Draft House.
It's an IRL moment in the Conjuring 2. Yeah. I tell you what.
Do you have a life hack you'd like to share with the class to improve their daily living?
Man, so I think growing up poor, the biggest ones are all car related, to be honest with you, and just learning the basic fixes of how to fix your car, or not, just learning how to Google how to fix your car is a big one. But in my daily life doing sales, I think a lot of it is like, before you are going to talk to somebody about something, especially if you're in like a professional relationship with them, try and have a solution loaded up ahead of time.
For what their presumed problem is going to be?
Right. You nailed it, right? Or like, or do information gathering. Like a lot of times, like my people will bring stuff to me, or even if a client brings something, like the more information you have, the better. And even if it's not, your job to be the one to fix it, it can make it a lot smoother if you've done an information gathering campaign to eliminate possible, hey, here's not the problem, right? Sometimes knowing what the problem isn't is a big deal.
Yeah.
And then just whatever you can do to propose a possible solution, right?
What is it that you sell?
I sell suits and suit accessories. Yep.
I know it's a thing, but that last bit, oh my god, suit accessories. I don't know why it's
suits and suit accessories. That's the old King of the Hill bit. Remember that? I sell propane and propane accessories.
Propane accessories.
That's it. That's where I get
suit
it.
And suit accessories. I love it. Right. It's so great. What is your what is the like as all right, we can dovetail this. If you're going out to a party as a suit man and you want to look extra, other than your normal garb, what accessory do you add to your ensemble? And what, since you are of such an eclectic nature, what would you recommend other people that you see out at parties or gatherings add to their ensemble to really make them hop in the way that they would like?
Yeah, fair enough. Men's fashion is kind of tricky because it's not really about like adding. You have a set number of items that you can wear. Don't get me wrong, you can wear whatever you want, right? But traditionally speaking, men aren't supposed to wear like extra bracelets. Right, you nailed it. Like you can't. Like we've sold in the past like little Navy anchor bracelets and things like that. They didn't sell, but theoretically, you have a limit on the number of accessories you can wear as a man. Just theoretically speaking, right? Wear whatever you want. But so like the most accessories that you usually put on are like tie, pocket square, tie bar. So those are the things that if you wanted to be extra, you could learn how to fold a pocket square and poof that out and do that either instead of a tie and undo a couple buttons. I'm a big fan of the tie. I'm a bigger guy, and bigger guys tend to look better with ties.
Fact.
Because you can tie a big knot. So you can tie a big knot, have that draped down, look nice. If you've got a solid chest on you, like I've seen some guys who are bigger but also had a barrel chest, then feel free to undo those buttons to the pocket square in there. But yeah, the pocket square is probably your big, hey, I'm going to do a nice fold on this. Don't worry too much about it. A lot of guys get freaked out on trying to match a pocket square to something. And a lot of times one is satin and one is silk. Not always, but sometimes that's the case. And so you can't match exactly. So too many guys, I feel like, get kind of lost in the sauce, as it were, with trying to match them. Just get them close. People will be happy you did that.
What is your recommended fold for a pocket square?
Yeah, I always do the trifold. That's a great question to even find and ask, to be honest with you. But I usually just, all you do is fold the corners together 3 times and then fold it once more, and you've got the 3 little peaks, and I think that usually looks the best. Or just a straight fold over a piece of cardboard so that it kind of keeps it flat. But yeah, the cardboard at the bottom hack, just Google it. You can just wrap your pocket square around a little piece of cardboard and use some paper clips to secure it. But that's an easy way to keep it up out of your pocket and kind of looking nice. And that's my hack for when I do models and things like that. Yeah. Models, mannequins, whatever. That's kind of how you can set that up nice.
Men, models, and mannequins, the 3 M's.
That's it. M&M's, if you will.
Well, speaking of the 3 food groups, what's your favorite meal to make just for yourself, assuming cost and time are not relevant factors?
Ooh. Well, I mean, if cost and time are not relevant factors, then steak is going to be my number one.
What cut we doing and how we doing it?
Man, I have never had the Wagyu. So given that I've never had it, I don't know that it's fair to say, but I want to try it because every other steak I've had has been delicious, regardless of how it's cooked or whatever.
Is there one of the ones that you've had that is like that you trust the most or would run back the most frequently?
See, no, because when I cook it, it's not as good as when the restaurant makes it. You know what I'm saying? So like when I go to the Brazilian steakhouse, then I love their top sirloin. But when I make it, it tends to be less flavorful.
It gets lost in translation somehow.
Yeah, exactly right. It loses some of the magic.
Maybe I need to learn Portuguese.
That's exactly. Maybe that's it. Maybe I'm reading the instructions in Portuguese and they're not in English, so I'm not understanding or something. But yeah. So when I cook it, no, just grab a meat, almost like the Asmongold $2 steaks gig, and just cook them rare. But yeah.
What is something that you do enjoy cooking for yourself that like the end result is like you kind of almost give yourself like the look in the mirror and the little nod of like you did it?
Man, it's not going to be classy. It's just not going to be classy. It would be like a pizza rolls. If like you can take some of those little mini croissants.
Ooh, and then we're going deep. We're not pulling them out of the package. We're making them. All right.
Oh, yeah. No, we're making them. They're just not. Right. They're not classy.
We got the croissants.
We got the croissants.
We got the Pillsbury croissant.
You got them. They got to be Pillsbury. Okay.
Yeah.
Or put them back. Then throw them in the trash. They ain't Pillsbury. All right.
That you should pitch that as an idea. That's a good tagline for Pillsbury. Put them back is like that
Pillsbury
is
put them back.
Marketing.
See, you came up with that. I didn't even think about that. You took what I said and made it into a whole tagline.
We can sell it as a duo. All right, so we got Pillsbury.
Yeah, we got the Pillsbury. Then you got whatever your preferred brand. This is less particular of pepperonis. Okay. So your preferred pepperonis is too many alliterations for a man that stutters, and then whatever your favorite like pasta sauce, whatever it is you put on pizza, tomato sauce. There we go. And that's all you need. You need pretty much those and some cheese. Cheese if you prefer.
What kind of cheese we doing?
Usually Parmesan.
Okay.
But whatever your favorite cheese on pizza is.
Yeah.
Some people stoop to American because it's all they know. And if that's
it's okay,
the case,
we love them all the same. They're just wrong.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, they're free to make their choices.
This is American,
we just roll them up in those croissants and bake them up, and you've got yourself some tasty pizza rolls.
That does sound delish. Oh.
Man,
all right,
proud every time. Every time they come
lunch.
out, I just look at them and I go, "We did it! Another one!" DJ Khaled style.
Scoreboard,
put it up and one.
What would you say is your favorite non-exercise thing that you have to force yourself to do?
Oh man, man, not too dissimilar from you. I like the content game. But when it feels like a job to get a little deep here, then I just can't make myself do it,
Okay.
So like if as much as I enjoy talking, as much as I enjoy, deep diving on things, doing some research, setting some things up, dressing up, all kinds of stuff, when it feels like a job, it has been my struggle to keep going when I just don't find that joy in it, So it's something like that. If specifically it's not exercise.
After you're done like recording an episode or doing a deep dive, it feels good. But just like getting the horse out the stable is like
right. I mean, you have to feel that sense of accomplishment, right? Like when it goes up, you listen to your own episode, right? Yeah. You have to do that.
Of course,
you got to do that.
Of course, I hear myself.
Yeah, and you want to improve. You want to do things like that. So I think that although it feels really good when I've got a finished product. That sometimes you're just deep into it and you're just by yourself in the lab, as it were, and you're kind of looking for your motivation, and that's been my struggle sometimes is going like, well, I could be whatever else I'm doing. So finding that motivation has been there, and I've done it several times, but it's just not always easy.
Yeah. If you were a condiment, which do you think you'd be?
Mayonnaise, not close.
All right. I love that answer. Why?
I like mayonnaise, and
mayonnaise likes me.
Yeah, mayonnaise likes me. Yeah, whenever I eat mayonnaise, I feel a connection, and it's just meant to be.
I love that you went with you didn't guss it up at all. You're like mayo. It's just perfect.
Yep.
Also, you called it by its full name. You didn't shorten it. You didn't say mayo like I did right there. Mayonnaise.
Formal. Yeah, I use the S2 version.
It's a business relationship.
Exactly right. Exactly right. The Spanish formal.
We're professional up here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's someone you've never met, alive or dead, that you'd like to have lunch with? Also, where are you taking them to lunch?
Oh man. Give me Obama. Yeah.
Is this a terrorist threat? Like, is there a gun that I don't see? I don't have him. I'll get him.
For legal reasons, it is definitely not. No, yeah, no. Let me take Obama to a different Texas barbecue place than he went.
Where did he go?
Think. What's that?
Where did he go?
I think he went to Black's. He went to Austin.
Okay.
Because he shut off all the highways on his visit, and it was impossible to get around town. But hey, we get it, right?
Yeah.
But Obama's story is so incredibly interesting, and especially as somebody who has various, I don't know, they're minor, but as somebody who has speech impediments, and I know that Biden talks about having his speech impediments in the past and getting over them. Like, Obama is, I think, the best speaker that we've had as president since at least Kennedy, and maybe before. I think you could argue that he's given better speeches or is a better speaker.
You're going to take him over Clinton. All right.
Yeah, definitely going to take him over Clinton. Because Clinton's whole spiel, right, was just like, I'm from a little town called Hope,
Okay, that's fair.
I don't know. It's just like, I could do his accent. I don't know. It was tough to, I don't know that Clinton ever felt as genuine as Obama did.
For sure.
He
definitely had, I think maybe it's for us, like, coasters, that since he was from like the kind of central South, it was like that folksiness kind of let him like trick our brains. But maybe also as you're from the South, it's like, all right, shut up. Like you're one of us. Don't try to pull the rug on me, sir. I will not stand for this.
Yeah. Again, if we're looking politics aside and just kind of from the time, I think that he was fine, but I don't even know that I would take him over Clinton over original Bush, just because at least the original Bush had a seriousness to him,
All right.
And things like that. But like, all politics aside, like
all right,
that.
So for those of us that are going to Austin and we don't want to do Black's, what's the second barbecue place that you're thinking of?
You can't go wrong with barbecue. There's a lot of barbecue here. There's a place called Rudy's that's like decent, that never has a line. That's where I would go to if like time's a factor,
All right, how long you got Obama?
Right.
Do we need to make it a hot 40, or we got an hour to play with?
Right, we got hours of his time. Hey, I got the whole day, I think, according to your question, right? Or do I just get lunch?
Yeah. You get a long lunch. You can make whatever you want of it. Is Black's a good restaurant, or is it overhyped?
It's overhyped.
Okay.
But it's an experience, You can eat lunch where Obama ate lunch. If that's even the one, I assume it's that one. There's another one in town that's also got like an hour or 2 hour wait. So.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Get Zooks.
Yep. And it's just cooked meat, man. It's just cooked meat. That's all there is to it. They don't sneak drugs in there. They don't do anything like that.
Yeah.
It's all the same.
It's just cooked meat, man. I won't tell your neighbors that you said that about Texas barbecue.
Thank you. Yeah, I would be on a watch list. Well, I'll probably be on one, but you know what I'm saying. A neighborhood watch list.
Yeah, exactly. What's a job that at some point in your life you wanted to pursue but are very glad you didn't get, or didn't end up kind of going down the chasm that led to it?
Oh, man. There are so many. I don't think we have time for for this question. Yeah, as much as kind of like the retail gig has its downsides, it's always allowed me to like move. And my wife in her career has had certain times where like she's had to move for various trainings, and so me being able to follow her to keep our relationship strong has made a big difference. And so at one point I wanted to be like an electrician. Which, as good of a gig as that is, it requires like a lot of travel most of the time.
Oh, really? That's
yes. So there were kind of a lot of trades that I kind of wanted to do. The main one being an electrician, because of my at my high school we had a lot of like, we didn't have like wood shop or anything like that anymore, but we did have a lot of like engineering classes.
Oh, cool.
And one of them was like a digital electronics class where you got to work on actual physical circuits. So that was something I actually seriously considered, but just due to the travel nature of it, it wouldn't have worked with where I'm at now, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, good thing you stuck to retail.
That's it.
What inanimate object would you be best friends with were it sentient, do you think?
Man, I wanted to say chair, but then I feel like the chair might resent me.
Yeah, know? it's going to be one of those like one-sided relationships. You're like, I love you, chair. He's like, go fuck yourself.
Right. Yeah, the chair's not as much of a fan of me, you know?
Maybe let me sit on you once in a while, huh? How about
exactly
that?
Right. Thinking about it from the chair's perspective, maybe not so much.
Or maybe they're into that. Maybe they prefer to be, you know, like maybe they're into that kind of like a dom sub kind of relationship, and they're just like, yeah, sit on me.
Right. Yeah, then that's even creepier, you know?
That is creepier.
Like, hey, I'm married, you know? Probably a computer.
The wife's here.
I think a computer is my answer. So that way when they inevitably take over the world, I've got an in, you know? Yeah. It's like, hey, no, I know Toby. Angle. Toby and I are friends from when I animated him, and then I shouldn't assume him, animated it, and then we were chatting for a while, you know, and I give Toby a Snickers, and then it can't eat Snickers because it's inanimate, and then it goes back to whatever it was doing. And then when they inevitably take over the world, Toby's like, not that one, you know, Skynet.
He's good. Yeah. Yeah. You're at the front of the line to the like surviving human club.
Exactly
like,
right.
Like
exactly right.
The guy that gets you through the rope.
And then being an electrician would have been more handy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Hey, keep you guys going.
Yeah. You wouldn't just be like a tourist. You'd be like of help.
That's right. That's right.
Well, when Skynet eventually happens and the, you know, technology does take over, what would your favorite non-traditional curse word be to utter in such a moment?
Cheez-Its.
Nice.
Yeah, that one I had loaded if you couldn't tell. Yeah, there's an old YouTube channel called like Little Rabbits or something like that, and it was created by one of the guys who has gone on to be part of Saturday Night Live. So one of the guys from Saturday Night Live started a YouTube channel way back in the day, and he does a skit on David Blaine.
Okay.
And a lot of people have seen this video, but at some point, it's David Blaine chasing around this couple, and he's being like, "Oh, let me do magic tricks." And like, "No, we don't want you to do magic tricks on us, David Blaine. Get away." And he's like, "No, it's okay. I'll just come right here. I'm going to do some magic tricks for you." And you know, then the magic tricks are all detrimental to their day. So he's like, "You stole my sweater," you know, or whatever it was. And so at some point, he's like, "Oh, what are you drinking?" And the guy's like, "Oh, I'm drinking orange soda. It's just orange soda. What do you want with me, David Blaine?" And he's like, "Are you sure it's orange soda?" And then he does like the weird look toward the camera, like, "Oh, I just did something magical." And he's like, "Yes, it's orange soda." And then he goes to take another sip, and he's like, "What? What did you do to my orange soda?" And he opens it up, and he's like, "Cheez-Its! It's Cheez-Its!" So instead of saying Jesus, I now say Cheez-Its. It's a great replacement. So
love it.
Long story for a little stupid a bit there.
I love it. No, like my favorite thing is that's not the only kind of reinterpretation of the word Cheez-It, because there's the other one which is like kind of like let's get out of here, like Cheez-It, and just like, you know, kind of like to run,
right?
So
to run, I like your description.
Get a second lane of interpretation.
So it's multi-purpose. It's multi-purpose.
What life lesson do you wish you learned sooner?
Oh man, you got hit me with a deep one there, huh?
Deep cut.
I don't know. Probably what I was talking about earlier. I think the biggest thing I've seen in life is considering things from other people's point of view. And I think that leads directly into what Wayne Gretzky and every other professional athlete who's like been transcendent has said, which is, I don't skate to where the puck is, I skate to where the puck is going. So the ability to not just see the situation, but see what's going to happen is not only not incredibly difficult, a lot of times we just don't take the time to do it.
It's kind of like a community mindfulness exercise, almost like not only looking at yourself, but looking at the world and the people in it, and like how the gears are kind of moving and why they're moving and where they're moving towards.
Yeah. And again, you can sit down with it and get like, an exhaustive view trying to get from it. But even in just a moment, just considering the person and that kind of gives you a power of empathy and calming people down. One of the things I've been greatest at, especially because like, although I do sell, high end stuff, a lot of it comes down to like customer facing and, or, I have my employees as well. So like conflict resolution has been huge. And if I didn't have the ability to, again, just de-escalate situations or solve problems effectively, I'd be in deep trouble. But it's really something that I wish I would have kind of taken on earlier.
You call these cufflinks?
Right. I've never gotten that one. But thanks for making me laugh. But even then, I tell some people sometimes in retail, you're a professional babysitter. It didn't used to be that way. I used to have a team of like fully commissioned staff, and after COVID, that's kind of changed. But in retail, that can be kind of what it is. So,
if there was a movie to be made of your life, who would you want to play you? And at what time period of your life? Like, what kind of story arc?
Yeah, who would I want to play me? I think Jonah Hill. Just because nice. in his weight loss arc, we're reasonably sized,
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And if I get to talk to him, that just seems like it'd be a fun time,
Fact.
That guy is hilarious. And as far as the timeline, man, it's been a ride. It's been a ride, Isaac. I
love it.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's how you know you're living the good life, is when there's too many to choose from.
Man, yeah, it's I was homeless for like 4 years in high school.
Whoa.
Yeah. So like there's a weird time there. But before that I wasn't. And so like one of the, hashtag blessed moments is going, 13 years with a somewhat normal upbringing. Mm-hmm. And then, in your most formative years, having that all taken away, but it could have been worse,
It's probably like one of the best times, like, I am sorry that happened to you, but
no.
For all time periods for that to occur, that sounds like it also might be one of the greatest too, because you have you're still in a formative years, so you can kind of bounce back. You're a lot more kind of like, rubbery, in that you can like kind of ricochet off your problems a little bit more at that age, but also you're still old enough to have perspective and kind of understand not only what it used to be like and kind of keep that in your mental back pocket of, things could always be worse, but also that you get to like experience growth and just see how that changes you. How, if you don't mind, are you open to talking about this?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how did that come about? You're 13 when you were homeless for 4 years?
Yeah. My it all happened when my mom and her stepdad, my stepdad, separated. And then my mom just had a lot of disease. One thing that I'm pretty vocal about is she suffered from anorexia and bulimia. And
that's a double beat.
Yeah, and they're pretty commonly associated, but it is one of those things that it takes its toll on you, and it's a mental kind of illness, so it affects a lot of you. And one of the things that ends up is like you don't get the nutrition that you need, and it affects you in that way. You don't have energy because you don't have energy reserves, and you're not eating in the right way to like process the energy essentially. And so that is pretty much the entirety of why holding down jobs was difficult for my mom, things like that. And so the only time of stability that I had was with school. But I will tell you that, most of the time at that age, you're still just scared of the world. So there's really not that time to have the perspective on what all is happening. But at the same time, it kind of was just life. Like it wasn't as big of a deal to me as when I tell people, because it was kind of just how we did things, right? Like we had, and homeless can mean different things. In my case, it meant like we would have to stay on different people's couches. Yeah. So like in whatever church my mom was a part of at the time, we would sleep on people's couches, and then stay in, like my mom was a hustler, so we would stay in a shelter. Right, or something like that. So I don't think that I ever slept outside. I think we slept in the car for one night. And other than that, every couple months we had to move, but we would sleep on somebody's couch or do whatever. So I rarely ever knew where that it was that I was living. But there was at least some kind of room over my head, which not everybody has the advantage of. So don't get me wrong. It was an experience that, like, I don't wish on anybody. Like, I don't think there's any net positives overall, to be honest with you. Like, there are some things that come out of it, but most of the time it's just like a negative wiring. Yeah. But you know, it could have been worse is kind of the way I look at it. So
yeah. Does that affect the way you kind of look at your own housing do you find that you put a lot more of a kind of paramount on job stability, or like are you currently a homeowner or do you rent?
Yeah, I do currently rent, but that actually is by choice. Thankfully.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We have a pretty specific situation that we're in where I have to take care of somebody's medical needs. So, like, size, shape of house are all very, very important, and not something that I'd want to invest into, you know, a big giant 2-story if I had the choice, especially because it's not going to be for always. But yeah, I am lucky enough to have had this job for 10 years. And I think, don't get me wrong though. Like, I think that the interview process, right? Like, for me, surviving wasn't, you know, I don't know, failure wasn't an option, if that's something that I'm allowed to say. So, like, I got a job when I was 17, as did many people, especially people that were older than me. And in my case, I paid my mom's rent. And if I couldn't, then we were going to be on the street. Yeah. So it's not that I was perfect, but definitely you're a little more scared of the world when that goes on. But you kind of, like, it kind of becomes passive, right? Like, you can't live just scared. So a lot of things, and to this day, it's been a detriment in many ways where you don't feel as stressed about things, even if you should, because, like, nothing is as big of a deal as that, you know? So, like, the stressful things are like, oh, do I have a place to sleep? And once that's covered, the rest of it's gravy.
Yeah, it puts it more in perspective. You sweat the little things a lot less when you've had to deal with the bigger things, and, like,
you nailed it.
You
nailed it. Like, but everybody else sweats the little things, right?
Yeah,
so
because they take housing for granted, because they've never had to be without it, especially for such a long period where it affects them in such a way that you did.
Sure. I think, again, just in that case, because everybody else does it, you know, that's mostly what my mind focuses on, and so you know, I don't do as much cooking, right? There's a lot of things that I don't do as a result, where it's kind of hard to get into.
Interesting.
But you know, like, a lot of those things were never important skills to me, because it was just like, well, I'll just heat up a can of 75-cent chili in the microwave, and that's it, right? Like, most meals were done for me, and they were done easy. Yeah. And so some of the bigger things, I'm not a big planner, because planning was always worthless, right? There's nothing much you could plan. Yeah, because
you couldn't. Yeah, there was a lot of you know, kind of variables, and, like, why plan when, like, so many of them are likely to not be certain, right?
You nailed it. But I am very good at interviewing and very good at surviving. So those are two things that I am. I
hear those are good skills.
They're decent skills. They're decent skills. Yeah. I don't think I've ever been out of a job for more than, like, a couple days. You know.
Oh wow.
And I've been at the same career for about 10 years. And then again, when we had a COVID layoff, even then I found something that I liked pretty quick, and that was a time-consuming thing. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, man.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope this doesn't ring as insincere.
No.
Doesn't ring as insincere. What poor man luxury do you still enjoy to this day?
What poor man luxury do I still? What does that mean?
So poor man luxury would be something like you're saying, like a can of chili, mac and cheese, something like. Think of, like, a dollar store item that is
Waffles.
kind of like. Okay.
Yeah. Just doesn't even have to be the Eggo. Right.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be the Eggos. You could just get me a dollar store frozen section thing of waffles, drown them in syrup, and then here's the weird thing, because there's a lot of jokes about soggy waffles. All right.
Okay.
You put them in the microwave, and you can make a dollar store waffle taste like an Eggo waffle. All right.
Interesting.
Yeah, you could take it up a whole 1.5 tiers. So it's not going to be homemade waffle, right? You're not going to get Belgian waffle. You're not going to get there. Yeah. Don't try. I've tried, you know. But you can take a dollar store waffle and make it that next tier by just drowning it in syrup, throw it in the microwave, and
we don't put it in the toaster first. You're saying take it frozen, put syrup, put it in the microwave?
Great clarification. You do also toast it.
Okay.
You just then need to microwave it afterwards, because it does give you soggy waffles. But the point is that you're leaning on the syrup, right?
Okay.
So this is not good if you are diabetic, pre-diabetic, anything like that. Don't follow this recipe, okay? but it will make your waffles soggy, but then they will absorb more of that syrup, and then just taste, like a waffly syrupy combination, and they will be good.
That's rad. I never would have thought that last part. I'm coming to you, Dollar Store. We're gonna test this theory.
I tell you what, if you need poor person life hacks, I've got a couple.
They're the best ones, though. That's the thing, that like they get a rough beat. Like I've mentioned, people are like, why would you do this? It's like, because they're the most fun and affordable. Like it's kind of like they're like poor man luxuries are like they're like the volcano of science, like experiments for kids. It's like, yeah, like they're cheap and everybody's done them, but that's why they're great.
Yeah, you get that sense of accomplishment, but like you get a double sense of accomplishment because you didn't spend much money on it. You know, like when you do something with just the bare materials or do something from scratch, like that's an extra accomplishment because like money's tight for everybody these days.
Fact.
But you didn't spend much money on it and you got your finished product. Double whammy win there.
Also, like your expectation is lower, which I think is like really important, at least for me, when doing something when you're like trying something out. If you're starting with like dollar objects and your output is like a 4, you're still like fine with it. Where if you went to the store, got all this, like if you followed a recipe off some YouTube channel that required you to like go to some relatively you had to go to Whole Foods to get all the ingredients, and the end result is even like a 6, you're kind of like let down. But if you went to the dollar store and your end product's even like a 4, you're fine. And if it's like a 6, you're like over the moon.
Right. Great analysis. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. They nailed it.
Speaking of nailing it, what? Okay, that doesn't track at all.
All right. So we were trying the segue, huh?
What media, whether it be book, graphic novel, TV show, or movie, have you been putting off that is next on your to consume list that you just can't wait to break open?
Oh man, it has to be one of the many video games that have won like Video Game of the Year.
Okay,
and I just haven't bothered to play them.
Which ones are we thinking of?
We'll go in reverse order. Let's go with like the newest God of War.
Okay.
Haven't got a chance to play that yet, but everybody says it's pretty good. And then any of the Call of Duties from the last couple years.
You can skip those.
Yep. Oh, I can?
Yeah.
Nice.
You're not missing a whole hell of a lot. As a Call of Duty gamer and like lover of at least as far as the non, I guess I should say the non, what's it called? Where you play like in 3-person, like when you play
multiplayer.
No, not the multiplayer is what I've played. I haven't played the battle royale. So maybe the battle royale is amazing, but I've played like traditional multiplayer and it has been very fine. It hasn't been bad, but definitely hasn't been good. Yeah. So if you're a battle royale gamer, maybe it's amazing, but my understanding is Apex is better. We're
just in this weird place with the PS5 where like now I can buy one if I really want to. And I just no longer really want to, But that's weird because like when it came out, I was like, oh man, if I could get one, I would definitely buy it, right? Like, and then I kind of gave up on that because like there were some options because weirdly enough, like Cons, the home like rental store, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
There's a brand of place called Cons. I don't know how widespread they are, but there's a bunch of like rent-a-center type places essentially. They had the PS5 for a pretty decent markup, and it was already marked up, so. You could get one from there if you knew somebody, and I happened to know somebody, and they were letting us know when they came in stock, and so one of the other managers that I know went ahead and grabbed one, and I didn't, and I'm pretty glad. I don't know how much time I would have even had to play it with all the content stuff I'm doing, plus working full time and all that. So yeah.
Now, if I was going to recommend a game of the year, though, if you haven't already tried it, Hades is
Hades. Yeah, that's on Switch, right?
That's on. I think that's on everything. It's on everything. PC. It's on Switch.
Yeah.
I want to say. Hold on. Windows, Mac, Nintendo Switch. It was released for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series as of 2021.
So I own half of that game because my wife bought it, and so I'm legally entitled to half of it.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I would recommend using your half of it.
Yeah, I probably will. My wife's a better gamer than I am. And so the only games that I'm good at are tabletop, and I struggle mightily in everything else. But I do my best. It's like watching that little baby goat try and knock down a fence. It's never going to happen, but you still encourage it anyway because it's cute. It's cute. But my wife's a better gamer than I, so she's played a ton of Hades, and I usually watch her play, so I get secondhand enjoyment out of it because I think it's pretty cool.
Oh, it's beautiful, and that's one of the games that I think is impossible to play with the sound off, just because of how good the audio design was with it. So
I think I agree with you. Yeah, I really enjoyed watching her play it, and she's done, I don't know, a couple hundred runs on it, so she played it for an entire summer.
Sadly.
Yeah, I tell you what.
All right. Well, lastly, before we throw it to commercial break, if you could have the listeners of this podcast hear one song of your choosing, which would it be?
Yeah, Soothsayer by Buckethead.
As a fellow Buckethead lover, cannot confirm enough.
There we go.
Definitely recommend. And with that, we're going to have to throw it to our first break. Feel free to stick around and enjoy this totally real commercial, or take a minute to enjoy Soothsayer by Buckethead. Or if you really wanted to hear a song from a previous episode, check out the playlist on Spotify, Passionate People and Preposterous Peeps podcast, Song Rex. It's a long title, I know. Don't worry, there's a link in the description. Either way, see you in a jiffy. Do you ever find yourself doing a mundane activity with nothing to keep you from gouging your eyes out or sticking a pencil through one ear and out the other? Uh-huh. Well, then perhaps I could introduce you to music. Music comes in a variety of different types, flavors, and colors. Theorists say that it's the best thing to introduce to your life since food. So go out and get some and make your life just a little bit more bearable. Welcome back, folks. So, Chris, what is your passion that you have brought with you today?
Yeah, I'm sure it's one of many people, but Magic the Gathering cards.
What it do? As a fellow magical nerd, I condone this.
Right.
But it's not, we were talking about this before, it's not just like, there's so many different like manifolds, I hope I'm using that word correctly and punerifically, to Magic. What is it specifically about Magic, or what area of Magic is it that like really kind of gets you going?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously, like I said, there are great many facets, wow, including social, and then just like doing cool things, right? There's a whole like Magic player psyche with the Timmy Johnny Spike thing, right? And for me, you'd kind of have to go back to where like when I was a young man, and we had kind of a normal life. I loved watching sports. So like I would throw it on ESPN, and whatever would come on, I would watch it. So at times in my life, I've watched professional dominoes. I've watched, just actual dominoes, like the little rectangular ivory, tiles. Yeah. Like that's what we're talking about here, not pizza making or anything to that matter. And so I know
although that is a thing, by the way.
Oh yeah,
I believe it's Domino's actually runs a like yearly like pizza making competition, which is hilarious sounding until you watch it, and it's the most compelling thing I think I've ever seen. Watching somebody just churn out and they have to make great too, so they can't have cheese can't be hit in the stands.
Sure.
Anyway, I digress.
No, I hear you. And then in competitive arm wrestling, so like the want to be a competitor in whatever facet I could has kind of always been there, but not necessarily against other people, against myself. And so one of the things I love about Magic is there's this old adage that says, every competitive Magic player strives to be perfect while understanding that they will never get there.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the goal, right? It's like you there's variance in this game no matter what, and it's your job to manage it as best you can. And in those situations, you still might lose. Yep. So being results oriented is not a good thing in Magic the Gathering cards, especially in small sample sizes. And everywhere else you see, we want results oriented people. But growing up in this game, that's kind of like the opposite of what you're taught from like the truly transcendent Magic players is like, hey, results matter less than looking and deciding if you made the optimal play based on the situations, because you have the pieces of the puzzle. So you can decide whether or not, especially in hindsight, you made the right play. But if you're doing that just because you won or lost, that's not necessarily right. Like you play based on what the chances were that you were going to draw this or your opponent had this, right? It's all based on the situation. So that to me is the most fascinating. Even though you're playing against another player, you control your own decisions only, obviously. And did you do the right thing in that particular situation is compelling to me. And I have met most of my lifelong friends playing the game.
I cannot reciprocate all that you just said enough. That's one of my favorite things to talk about when talking about Magic and metagaming and like the kind of experience level with unknown information, is that in Magic, like in poker and other games of that kind of hidden information aspect, you can have an idiot make the same decision as a genius, and one of them is right and one of them is wrong. Because it's not like it's the reason why you make a decision that makes it right or wrong, which is just fascinating to me.
Yeah,
is that you can have three people make, or you can have beginner, intermediate, genius. You can have the beginner and the genius make the same play, and the intermediate make a different play, and the intermediate and the genius can be correct, and the beginner can be wrong.
Sure.
Which is just wild.
Yeah, I you're breaking down game theory on me, which I absolutely love. Hidden information, perfect information, right? Imperfect information. These are all terms of somebody who is in fact a gamer. Okay, so game recognized game in that regard for sure. You know.
Nice. Well played, sir. Well played.
There you go. But yeah, no, I mean, you nailed it, right? Like, I think game theory is super interesting, and again, I mostly like about it that, like, I don't super need to compete against others. I'm mostly trying to do better myself. And I think that's kind of that key difference between like sports and what we're doing here. Mm-hmm. But winning does feel good, right? There's no denying that.
That being said, I would like to be the champion.
Winning does feel good. There's no arguing there. And but it feels nice. Like we were talking about earlier when we talk about like, hey, you know, the payoff for making something, right? The payoff for, you achieving something, whatever. It's kind of rolled up in the same way, and finding other people to talk about with that, especially because, like, you know, you could put emotions aside. Mm-hmm. In a game like this, where it can be really tilting to like make all the right decisions and lose, it can be really tilting to have your opponent draw the one card that you were going to lose to, and play that card, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen not infrequently in a game of Magic cards, but those are all things you kind of have to push to the side, and then finding again other people that kind of think like you. Again, I've made lifelong friends I don't think I would have made otherwise, and just whatever that philosophy is that is shared, I feel like, again, just the dearest of friends that I just rarely ever have arguments with. And when I find some people who, sometimes you're going to have disagreements with friends or whatever else, it's pretty rare. We are mostly talking shop and playing games and things like that, and we communicate pretty well, so we rarely get into big heated discussions or arguments or something like that where feelings get hurt,
Yeah, I totally same wavelength when it comes to like friends. I remember having a discussion with an ex years ago, and I had all these friends in quotes, it was a decent number, but it wasn't like, not like
you're so popular. We get it. Oh my gosh. Okay, man. All right.
And she's like, wow, she was having trouble making friends. All of her friends she had lived with at the time, she had like, 4 roommates that she had known forever. And, they moved their separate ways, and she kind of got out of touch with them, and she's feeling very lonely. She's like, how do you make these friends? I was like, I just play a game. Like, I just like realized, like, it's just because I play Magic. That's how I've made all these friends, is just by proxy of like doing this thing where we share this intellectual wavelength, and we have this common activity to do together. It's just like, yeah, it's just kind of made all these great friends by just playing this great game. It's just like so fantastic.
Yeah, starting off with a shared activity and a philosophy, turns out it goes a pretty long way when it comes to relationships.
It does in fact go a long way.
Yeah.
So to kind of rewind time, when did you first start playing Magic?
I probably first started playing Magic in like 2004.
All right, date yourself a little bit. How old were we?
I would have been 14.
Okay.
Yeah. Or around in there. And so the game I started playing first was a game called Duel Masters. You remember Duel Masters at all?
That sounds very familiar.
It was a game with shields, and it was just Magic for children, essentially. But I don't think that it was made by Wizards, but it might have been.
It was made by Wizards.
It was?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
It's very Yu Yu Hakusho like looking.
Yes. Yeah, that's fair. The main character, I think, looked like that guy, and I think that's why. But it was the same kind of game. Like you had shields, and so you put up shields. So any direct attack to your life points, as it were, knocked off a shield. And so I started playing that at a place local in town now called Pat's Games.
Love it.
And so there was a tournament for it, and we didn't have enough people to fire. So one of the guys who just loved hanging around in the game store and is probably a little bit creepy was there. And the store owner was like, hey, we need one more person to make this event fire. Will you join, and I'll give you a starter deck?
You said that, immediately an image of somebody at my local store conjured,
you
and I was
know.
like,
yeah.
I was like, that's a little sus. And then you said that, I was like, oh my god,
yeah.
like we're thinking the exact same guy.
Yeah, exactly right. An image popped into your head, and it's exactly right. Yeah, there was a guy who just like always hangs out at the game store because they've either got way too much money or nothing better to do. One of the two, you know. Yeah. Sometimes both.
Yeah, they haven't taken a shower in quite recently enough.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
Yep. They wear a jacket to try and hide it, but it's not fooling anybody, you know?
Yeah. It's also the same jacket they've had since high school.
You nailed it. Right. Yeah, exactly right. Whether big or small, it's the same jacket. Yeah.
Same jacket.
And so that guy played, and I think I played against that guy in the finals of that tournament because I spent a lot of time just sitting there looking at my cards, right? Like, what do I think the best combination of cards is? But there, because that guy was like, oh, you ever played Magic? And I was like, no. And then, was like, oh, okay, well, here's some Magic cards. And so I looked at my first Magic cards kind of at that time. And, it's hard to talk about this without getting a little bit emotional because I am the rightful world champion of Beyblade. And that was all taken away from me, Isaac. So, I don't know how much I want to get at here. It's still a touchy subject, but at 13 years old, I should have been Beyblade world champion, and I wasn't. So, I had to start my hero arc, or my time skip arc. Played some Duel Masters, and that's what took me into Magic. So first year of high school, there were some kids who were looking at Magic cards, and I was like, oh, I know those. And they were like, yeah, this new set's coming out. Kamigawa's out now, and this new set called Ravnica's coming out in like 6 months. And so we got the first spoiler art for it.
Yeah.
So we put this thing up there. So the rest is history.
Yeah, I remember that time. It was interesting. You came in during the kind of downtick into uptick. It was like for those of you that don't know, Kamigawa was one of the sets that kind of almost did long-lasting detrimental damage to Magic because while it was beautiful and has some of the best art and flavor, it wasn't very appealing. And so it was kind of like, if I remember correctly, kind of a downtick in Magic sales. But then Ravnica, I think basically the best-selling Magic set of all time, came out and just like blew the doors off.
Yeah, I think in the last, if you ignore the last 5 years because of either post-COVID hype or just them doing new arts like Pokemon does that they just refused to do in years prior. They've only either had regular and foil versions. They didn't want to make multiple arts.
Yeah. Until they wanted more money recently.
Yeah, it's one of the most popular, at the very least, one of the most popular sets or planes of all time is Ravnica City of Guilds. Yeah. And, it's about this city, right, this magical city that has 5 different guilds that are based on the color of mana, and they all have their place. So, there's a guild that controls, kind of the laws. There's a guild that controls the banks. There's a guild that controls, science magic, because obviously it's magic, so there's the science thing combined.
If you've seen Arcane on Netflix, that is basically what
yeah, even though it's a Riot property, it's kind of like that. Yeah, I'd say so. They introduced a couple new big heroes that are really popular. Right, Jace is a planeswalker who's really popular from that plane, and I think that's the main one. I don't think planeswalkers have been invented yet.
No, yeah.
But
right, so you get into it around 13, 14.
Yep.
When was your first Magic tournament?
Oh man, 16.
Okay, you take a couple of years.
Yeah,
get your feet wet.
It definitely took a couple of years, but that was its own. I don't know that you would do that in the year 2023. But maybe me and my friends used to sleep on one of our friends' floors.
Love it.
Yeah, so we would sleep on the floor, and we were fine with it. It wasn't whatever, especially compared to where I normally slept.
I was gonna say at this time it's you're yeah, this is exactly where I would be sleeping.
I'm used to sleeping on the floor at this point, right? And so one of my friends, I'd go sleep at their place, and we would have because there were no smartphones, so we had an alarm on my friend's oven.
Love it.
Yeah, we used the oven alarm, so sometimes we would sleep in the kitchen just to make sure that we would hear it, because we would get up, and then our friend's dad was like, yeah, no problem, I'll drive you guys 3 hours and drop you off at the convention center to play Magic cards,
Oh my god, that's so awesome.
Yep, so we
that
had
is so cinematic,
dude. We had no money, so my friend's dad made us peanut butter sandwiches, and we would pack them in little things and some water.
All right, what's the other accoutrement? Bread, peanut butter, and or did we reach the end? Is there no jelly jam honey?
There was none on this because it was sealed in a bag. We don't want it to get sticky. I guess you already got the peanut butter.
It's just a cement sandwich.
Oh yeah,
oh my god,
no, they weren't good. They were just nutrition. This was just caloric value. Okay, that's all. That's all we were going for here, and then water. Because again, I had no money, so
you need something to push that sludge down with.
You nailed it, right? And then at that point too, and I've since stopped doing this, but I used to hustle magic cards, right? So I used to trade my magic cards into better magic cards.
Yeah, boy.
And now I don't. Like, now I'm firmly against that.
Now I have money.
Right. So like now now I trade. Like, I would never rip off a little kid. You know, I would never.
Oh, you're talking scamming. Okay.
Oh yeah. I mean, in some sense of the word, like, these people agreed to this trade. But for those of you that don't know, especially early Magic cards was all about, yeah, kid, I'm going to rip you off for your shiny Charizard. You know? Yeah. Because you like whatever it is.
How are you also going to get up in the world? Like, you gotta...
Right. You nailed it. But it was a different world. There were no smartphones, right? So, like, you were rewarded for memorizing values of cards.
Memorizing it or having a subscription to Inquest.
That's right. Or Scry magazine. Yeah. You nailed it. There
was a month... For those of you that didn't live through this transcendental time, there were 2 magazines. Initially one. I think it was just literally just Inquest for a minute. That every month they printed out and you could buy it from your local store, and they had a price guide for, I think, like all of Magic at the time, which was considerably, yeah, it just like listed all the cards, and you would go and kind of do that like a stock trading sheet.
Yep, that's a great comparison.
If not, you would do like rare for rare, and that's where the scum came into the existence. Yeah. Is when you're like, yeah, it's just one rare for one rare, except my rare is worth $1 and your rare is worth like $10.
Right.
Just big come up.
Yeah, because this is going to be real confusing. But hey, if you love stocks or something like that, then you know, here's your best comparison. But essentially, yeah, certain cards were worth more than others. Obviously, that's the nature of the game, and you could trade your way up. So the reason I even got some decks, and none of them were good. Like, I did not do well in Magic tournaments until I was much older. But I was able to get cards that I wanted by using like any birthday or Christmas money that I had. I would usually buy certain singles. I rarely ever bought sealed product at the time, or I would buy cards off of people. Like, there was a ton of people who would be like, "Oh, I've got these cards. I need to afford rent. You know, I need $50, or I need to buy gas. I need $50." So you'd buy $300 or $400 worth of cards for $50 from people, and then you could just trade from there. Like, once you did that one time, you were pretty good. So yeah. So then once I kind of had a deck or two together, then the rest of my money would go to tournament entry, which tournament entries were maybe $20 at the time. They're more expensive now, but you know, $10, $15, $20 could get you into one of these big tournaments, and it was just a time that you won't forget, right? You're hanging out with your friends. Again, we were 16 years old. We're alone in this convention center, just running around, running amok, and just having a good time. So it was me, my buddy Ricky, who's on my Magic the Gathering podcast that I host, and then my buddy Nate, who is not, but is still a longtime friend of mine and joins our podcast sometimes. So, yeah.
That's so sweet. So you're going around. This is all while, to remind the viewers, this is all while you're sleeping on couches of other parishioners of the
floors.
church.
Yeah, or floors. Yeah.
With an oven timer ready to roll.
Exactly right.
Playing with your boys,
who
you're still tight with, which just, oh my God, my heart is full.
Yeah. And this is a long time later. I don't know. Again, it's I guess 15, 16 years later, something like that. So right to the point where I've played more Magic in my life than not. Right. Yeah. Now that I've breached 30 or 31, I've spent more time in my life playing the game of Magic than not playing it. But again, it's really just about that social interaction in that drive for competitiveness. But yeah, a wild time, and we would do that. You know, we would do that once every other month, you know, if possible, right? Like, sometimes I didn't have the money to go, or whatever else, but you know,
being homeless will do that to you.
Like everybody else, I still got birthday and Christmas, and you know, a lot of my family didn't know my situation. You know, I didn't know they didn't know. But it's kind of a hard thing to talk about, also. Right, like, and you don't fully understand what you're going through, because again, at the time, it's like, oh well, I've got a place to sleep. It's just not my place, you know. Or it's like, oh, we've got an air mattress that all three of us would sleep on. Me, my mom, my little brother, up into like 17 or 18, we would have to sleep on the same air mattress.
When did you realize in your adolescence that, oh, this is different? Oh, this is not bad, but this is a sign of something?
Yeah, I think you kind of always know, just because it changes, right? Like, and the first time you go to like that shelter, again, you're scared of the world anyway. Sort of like, then also be like, you know, something that nobody else cares about, but like, you feel very seen, right? Like, you feel as though everybody knows, even if they don't. And you feel as though like it is something to be ashamed of. So, and even again, if nobody would care, you know, they would at some point, somebody would make fun of you, but most people don't care. Most people are just like, well, you're Chris. And so I was very lucky to be, as my wife described, because my wife and I went to high school together. I'm pretty well liked. But just through being like a pretty calm demeanor, right? I never had anything up on anybody because I was homeless, so I was never trying to make fun of anybody or be mean to anybody, really. So I was lucky to be in an area that treated me well, and I got to go to the same high school for 4 years, so I got to keep all the same friends. And then again, great, once I was 17 and a half, 18, I was able to get a job, and I got my grandma's 97 station wagon.
Nice.
Yeah, so we had the shaggin' wagon, as my friends called it, and then we were driving to those tournaments all on our own. We'd sleep in the back of the station wagon if we needed to.
Yeah, that's so rad. Oh my god, we're gonna have to talk scriptplay. This is a movie and a half. Holy macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right, so we're doing that. We're going to these tournaments.
Yep.
When did you have your first watershed moment as a up and coming Magic tournament player? What was your first memory of, like, not that it was necessarily what you're going for, but like what was the moment you're like, oh, I am good at this, or I did it, or kind of like plaque on the mantle, newspaper clipping of your like Magic career. Do you remember the first one?
Yeah, I think the first time that like I have proof of would have been really when I was like 22 or somewhere in that kind of range. Because I always like thought I was good at Magic, but like I didn't have, again, the funds to like buy the tier 1 deck, because like Magic is meta game focused, and so that to say there's a top deck at the time, and usually like you either want to be playing that deck if it's the best deck because you're trying to give yourself the best opportunity, or angling to beat that deck, right?
Yep.
And that can change week to week. Like whatever deck does well this week, everybody's going to go out and buy that deck. And the next week, you need to be prepared to beat it, essentially. So you don't want to be playing that deck because everybody else is going to be playing it, especially if it's not necessarily the best deck. If it's the flavor of the week, well, you have to be prepared to beat the flavor of the week. But that takes like either money or preparation or whatever else it might take. So once I was able to kind of get the funds to like, hey, I'm just going to buy the best deck, because up until then I was just brewing, right? We didn't have the money to play the best deck, so me and my friends would just sit around brewing. But I think starting off brewing really made us good because we really played and learned our decks really well. So like understanding how to do that was important. So like 22, I think I had a string of like 6 tournaments where I cashed in a row.
Nice.
Yeah, playing like a junk reanimator deck, but I still never top 8 it. So I still don't have that like singular top 8 moment where I was like, oh, look here. But for like six tournaments in a row, I was like top 32 for all of them.
And these are like major events?
These are all like 5 or 10Ks.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's very awesome.
So, I mean, I think I made a couple $1,000s off of that overall stretch. But I never broke the top 8,
Yeah, but I mean, like, still doing that consistently, especially at 22, must have been like very affirming.
I think so. I think it was that time where it's like, okay, I know this deck really well, and then of course I think after that it rotated out because it was a standard deck. But I did know it really well, and I had some really high profile players, at least in our area, start to take notice of like how I was playing the deck, and they changed their deck to be how I was playing it, and then one of them did awesome. Top 8 with the deck that I was playing because they're like, oh, that version is slightly better. We like what you're doing there, so. That was pretty cool. And there's been a couple times in general where I've like helped people brew a deck that went on to do really well. The first version of Red Black Vampires, I don't know if you remember that from Zendikar.
Yes, sir.
Me and a buddy made that deck, and then he was the one who top 8'd an event. It was called Wizard World. But if you go look up the origins of Red, I'm not kidding you. It was a Comic-Con that they had a big like 5 or 10K tournament, so a bunch of Magic players showed up to it. And he was the one who, in whatever it was, 100 person or however many people it was, he top 8'd with that deck. And it was the first time anybody had made that deck. Was me and him putting it together. Funnily enough, watching a friend play a similar version, and he was the worst player that we knew. It's like we saw him play it terribly and do really well, and we were like, man, if he can play this terribly and do really well, there's got to be something here. So
it was a recent revelation I had.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, been playing actually roughly started around the same time period as you.
Yeah.
And had that revelation when this guy who I thought was like, I kind of like always, he says things and I instantly snap crane my neck is like, that's the weirdest shit I've ever heard. That can't be right.
Right.
And upon further reflection, I am indeed correct. That is some wild shit and is definitely wrong. However, he's been having a string of success with a certain deck, and I was like, that's strange. And then it was like, oh, that's a proof of a deck being good, is when somebody who is questionable in the Cabeza is crushing. You're like, Maybe
there's something here.
There's something here.
Yeah, you nailed it. So in very minor parts of Magic history, I've had a very, very small contribution, I guess you could say.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And
10 million people play this game, and it's growing, and you've had a contribution. You're doing it, man.
There you go. I'm doing it.
Footprint has been left.
Yeah, I tell you what. So now with this, some of these big tournaments coming up in Dallas, I'm going to try and play more because, again, most of what I do is talk about the game on my podcast and do a lot of analysis for it. And that doesn't leave a ton of time for playing, given how much time we spend into that kind of thing. And generally, like organizing content and whatever else that we do for the game, organizing small tournaments that we host on our Discord and things like that. So, but hopefully soon is the time where I get to play a lot of Magic and prove what I've wanted to be all along as a quality Magic player.
Love it. Do you have, to kind of revert back in time, do you have any cards that what's the oldest card you have from your like personal ownership?
Oh, man.
What's the card that you had? Do you have any cards from when you started, like day one?
Yeah, I do. I do. I wouldn't say day one, but like that first set, there's a couple cards. Unfortunately, I've had one of my collections stolen.
No.
Yeah, I know. So it's actually it's not very many, but I still have a remand.
Nice.
And this is a card that for 2 mana will return a spell that your opponent has just cast to their hand, and you draw a card. And it turns out just that 2 mana delay is pretty effectual. But I still have one of those, and then I still have from the early 2010s Snapcaster Mages that I opened.
Nice.
As well as some Revelarks from Lorwyn and Shadowmoor. So there's not too many, but I have like a few rares that I had misplaced them, so they weren't in my binder or they were just somewhere else. Yeah. So there's nothing big ticket or anything like that. Yeah. There's a couple cards that I have that are from like some of my earliest days of playing.
That's awesome. What would you say is the biggest misconception about Magic competitions and camaraderie by the wider world?
Yeah, I think, most people have day jobs, like, although there are some of what you would, I guess, consider the stereotypical gamers there. Mm-hmm. The game itself has attracted a lot of kinds of different people, and especially when you look at the old pros from the East Coast, a lot of those guys are like stock guys. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of them are in the financial world.
That trading metaphor it's a lot closer to home than we anticipated.
Yeah, you nailed it. And there's a lot to the financial world of it as well. So while it's maybe a little more small time hustly, like if you had a good mind for the financial world of it, you can do well on pretty much anything. So I just think that there's maybe a limit on the diversity of Magic player. When I think that the type of person is a lot more diverse. I think we have a long way to go, to be honest with you, in diversity overall.
Agree.
I have, I could write, and I've considered writing an expose on how friendly I am with some of the more, not the earliest pros, but the ones right after them, as far as like generationally, and how they all were like friends with the same guy who was not a very good person, and it led them to particularly treat women very badly, which a lot of them got in trouble for, actually. Some of them have not, but it's because they didn't do anything necessarily criminal, they were certainly not very respectful of women. And I think that was unfortunately for such a long time, right after like the Japanese pros and like American pros came to fruition, because there's a timeline of Magic the Gathering history that I guess I should preface with, where like the first good Magic the Gathering pros were all American because the game was made in America, and they were particularly like New York guys, your John Finkel's, your Steve O'Mahony Schwartz's, so on and so forth. And then like Japan took over everything. Like the Japanese players were best. Like your favorite Magic players, a guy named Kenji Samura.
Yeah, boy.
And so, like, Japanese players are the best. At one point, there was an interview going around U.S. Nationals, and it was won by a guy who was actually one of the first. Michael Jacob won one of the U.S. Nationals, content was coming around big, right? People were getting camcorders, like it was kind of the dawning era of the internet. And so somebody asked, because they're like, man, Magic, Michael Jacob's such a good Magic player. Do you think he's one of the top 5 Magic players in the world? And one of the best Magic players of all time responded, well, there's currently more than 5 Japanese players, so I'm going to say no. And that was to speak on how, like, what a stranglehold the Japanese had on top professional Magic play. Everybody looked to them when cards were selling out in Japanese markets. Everybody would buy them in American markets because there was such a fear that, like, oh, they've got the next big deck.
Yeah, they've got the tech.
Yeah. So what they've got the tech, whatever it may be. So we need to buy it also. And like that was people, who were smart trying to predict the market, looking at Japanese markets to predict it. But once the American Magic circuit came out, so then like a bunch of independent like game stores would host their own national circuits. Like they were making so much money selling Magic cards, they would literally go set these things up to both buy and sell Magic cards. It was kind of over. Like America by far and away had the best Magic players because every week somewhere in your region there was a large cash tournament for Magic the Gathering cards and you could go and play against some of the best people, maybe in the world, maybe in your area, but it was the catalyst for Magic. And it was Channel Fireball and Star City Games were the companies that did it, but they would have and then to some extent TCG Player. But once that happened and you could just play high level Magic every weekend, no other region could compete. Nobody else had that.
And it was only high level Magic too, because they still had that going on to some degree in Japan. I think one of the things that made a huge difference is that it was televised effectively via Twitch.
Sure. Yeah. And
you got really good commentators. This is the birth of, I think, the best commentator pairing. I as somebody who watches sports, if you want to see great commentating and great like camaraderie is not even quite the right word. Just they just gel perfectly. It's Patrick Sullivan and chemistry. There we go. That's the word. Go watch old, new, doesn't matter. They clicked early and they clicked hard. Patrick Sullivan and Cedric Phillips are like one of the reasons also American Magic got great is because it became watchable and it became high level. Just at the same time, which is really impressive.
100%. And so like then you had somebody to look up to, right? And so not only could you do it, but you wanted to do it because look, here's these people who are on camera playing Magic cards, winning money. So whatever your motivation was, that you could do it. But one of the downsides was, again, like I feel like, especially having known some of these people, knowing some of their ex-wives in some cases, was the people that we elevated. Again, were not the most respectful, particularly to women. They were all pretty much white dudes, and they had some character flaws, to say the least. And publicly, several of them were either kicked out of professional Magic leagues or otherwise for behavior that is not becoming of people in general, to be honest with you. And so I think that left a bad taste in people's mouths, and it led a bad taste in my mouth, to be honest with you also. And thankfully we're kind of in a whole new era of that. So like there's a whole new opportunity where those people are far gone. Current Magic is incredibly diverse. It's getting more diverse as people see people from all kinds of backgrounds and who look all kinds of ways succeed.
It's really beautiful to see it grow because we grew up in the same time. I grew up in a rural area and I remember playing Magic, all white dudes. All the conversations were that kind of aggressive, like disgusting locker room talk of just like dicks, women are objects, rinse, repeat. I remember, and this is a story that's funny to me because it's so fucked, but my first pre-release that I remember going to was for Scourge. It's the second set in Onslaught block. It's like 2003, early 2004. And I get paired against a guy who is classic, kind of like we were talking about, but less welcoming of like that, like guy, heavy set, hasn't shaved, hasn't showered. That shirt looks like it's been around a minute. And I get paired against him and he goes, Sears, get over here. I'm going to lube you up and fuck you. It's like, oof. I was 15, 16 maybe, and this man's at close to 30. Dude. And the only reception was laughter. And that's the kind of circumstance. While it's funny in watching an 80s movie, like misogyny is funny, which to say predominantly isn't. That is what we've moved away from, thankfully. And now we are into circumstances where we are having quirky conversation, not disgusting conversation, where we are welcoming everybody, where nobody is... because that while there are people that are going to find that funny, and they are allowed to find that funny, there are a lot of people who are going to be like turning around and walking out the door quickly, as they should. Context
is everything there, right? Like, if you're saying that in just a room with you and your buddy, and like you both understand it's a joke, then great, right? Like, I think that it's totally fine to say there are certain things I would say in public, certain things I wouldn't, because like if people don't know where you're coming from, then it's a whole different story. Like, and again,
but the problem here is that I didn't know this man. He knew my, like, he didn't even know my first name. He only knew my last name.
Man,
I had never played against him, and he's saying this in a room of 20-something people loudly.
Yeah. I participated in one of the largest, what were called PTQs. They were Pro Tour qualifiers on record. It was in the Austin, Texas area. We had near 300 people.
Holy shit.
And I remember it because the roof caved in. Like the water,
it couldn't take that much magic.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it couldn't handle it. But like the classic AC leak, right? Like the AC is leaking, and because the drain is clogged, and so it spilled water or something, and it crashed all over somebody's cards, and it was a big deal.
Oh no!
But so like same thing. I sit down for round one, and there's a guy who's loudly bragging to his friend. He's like, "Man, I got so drunk last night, but I went home with this girl. She felt like a cloud." Like I remember that exact phrase because I was like, "Oh, this guy's weird," Man, so it was like that. We had a pre-release we went to with me and again my 15, 16-year-old friends where we had to ask the guy across from us. It was very nice. We'd be like, "Mister, can you please take your 40-ounce Bud Light and put it on the ground? Because I don't want my magic cards to get ruined if you knock them over." And he was like, I guess. So then he moves his 40 to the ground, which was very polite of him. But yeah, it was kind of the Wild West. So while I feel like there's a reason for people to have viewed kind of the nerd cards in the way that they have, I think that it's changing and it's becoming more welcoming, and there's a big force behind that. And even then, at least there was still, although the people may have looked the same, you did have a lot of financial gurus. You had a lot of, goobers and losers and whatever you want to call them in there as well. But it's attracted a lot of different kinds of people, and hopefully more as we kind of open those doors wider. Yeah.
All right. Well, on that hopeful note, because it's not happy, but it's definitely hopeful.
Hopeful, yeah, we'll call it hopeful.
We're gonna move on from that beautiful landscape to the obnoxious. Chris, what is your preposterous peeve that you've brought with you today?
Oh, yeah, thank you for asking. I don't know how preposterous it is because I'm just obviously just so logical that, if it gets on my nerves, it must be correct, right? But it is, from my perspective, when people walk into a store on their cell phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is to say, hey, if you're coming from outside to inside. Now, again, some people need shelter from the weather, so this is not always the case. But it has been the case where I have watched people walk in on a cell phone, talk loudly at somebody so that everybody else can hear their conversation, and then hang up the phone and then wonder why nobody's helping them. Or like walk up to somebody like in a Target while still on their cell phone and like trying to talk to two people at once.
Love it.
And like watching that not only unfold because it's just absolutely hilarious where they're going like, "No, wait, I'm not talking to you." And like, "No, I am talking to you though." That kind of situation where you're trying to balance two conversations.
That is my favorite blurb that you can put in any comic. It's so choice.
Yeah.
The kind of like the double talk of like, it's the air in which they say it that like, obviously I'm not talking to you. Right. Yes, I'm talking to you. It's like,
it's a who's on first, what's on second situation almost. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
the person that's saying it doesn't understand. Like
right. They don't get the ludicrousness of the situation. Right. Yeah. And especially having been exposed to it from being inside, again of a retail environment. It is one of those things that just, to me, is like ultimately disrespectful. And it's one of those things that some people be like, "Oh, okay, maybe it's kind of like annoying or whatever." But like I view it as like a pretty massive disrespect. And it's like one of the top ways to get me to be like, not help somebody essentially,
Yeah.
Or like maybe I'll have somebody else help them if I'm feeling it. But otherwise, especially in the era we're in now where there's so few places to get certain things, if you want personal help, you don't have a lot of options in the market. So
all right,
I get to view my services a little more.
I need to determine how targeted I should feel here. Right. So obviously the level 0 or the level 10, depending upon how we're showing the scale, is walking in with the phone facing up away from them, holding it like it's a platter on speaker, talking to someone.
Sure.
That is obviously douchedom, like top level.
Fair enough.
That sound about right? Am I missing one?
That's probably the worst that you could do it in this in the context of what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And the best part to me is like when somebody does this and is in no way like you look at them with a view of derision and they're just kind of like, what?
Right.
Like, what's your issue? And you're like,
right.
What do you mean, what's my issue?
So I love the way you put that. Yeah. Yeah. What's my issue? Right. Yeah.
You've got that. Next, where are we going? Like, let's go either down or up the scale depending how we want to slant it. What's after?
I don't think there's anything up from there, but if we were to go down the scale, and it's maybe surprising, but again, it's just the hilarity of it. It's the person with the Bluetooth headset that like you can't tell who or what they're talking at because they've got the Bluetooth headset in.
Assuming that like either this or the kind of crim on top version of this is when it's behind like bangs or like a beanie or something like that, so you can't even see that they're on the Bluetooth.
Right, because then you're like, oh, hey, like, you know, everything going all right, and they look at you like you're crazy because they're like, well, I'm on the phone. Why are you talking to me?
Obviously, I'm on the phone.
Right, exactly, right. Yeah. That is not much worse, other than, you know, the oblivious. Maybe it is a little worse. I'm not sure, but it's pretty close. They're pretty close, and whichever way you think might be worse is like the wait, why are you talking to me person when I'm on the phone, and then they're like, oh, like show you the Bluetooth headset, and like, oh, why would you be talking to me right now? You know?
Yeah.
How rude are you, you know?
So what comes next? Is it headphones in? Like headphone like plugged in? Or is it like phone to the ear?
Phone to the ear is probably the least offensive. Because like, you know, like what if it's raining outside and you need to step into a store to complete your phone call for whatever reasons? That doesn't actually grind my gears too much, so long as you then aren't immediately asking for help. Like if you do that, then put your phone on and then look around for a second and then go, or if you come up immediately and say, hey, I apologize, I just needed to step inside to get away from the weather. Like if you explain the situation and then ask for help, we're mostly fine. You know, like that's the lowest tier of like offensiveness you could do, because maybe you need to get out of the weather, whether it be cold, rain, whatever it is, especially if you're nice about it, understanding. I think that's, you know, the lowest that it's like, hey, it's still annoying because you should have sat in your car or done whatever else. But you know, it's the lowest here, so it's not going to make me very upset at all. So that's kind of the lowest you can go, is phone up to the ear. I can clearly see you're talking to somebody. You're quiet. You stay near the front, right? Yeah. Above the guy who stays near the front is the guy who walks around the store on the phone talking.
Oh, that's acceptable?
No, that's what I'm saying is like that's the next tier of like worse. So like the best you could do, you know, tier 0, if we're saying 10 is the worst, 0 is best, yeah? Tier 0 is the guy who, you know, steps in, stays near the front of the store, finishes up the conversation in a pretty quick manner, and then goes, oh, hey, I either need help finding something or doesn't, and just kind of shops around and does whatever. Next tier is a guy who then, you know, worse, is walking around the store, talking on the phone, because maybe you're helping other people, right? And they're like talking on their phone, interrupting your conversation just because they're talking loudly at nobody. So that's the next tier, is like, you know, hey, but at least they didn't need help. They just stepped in, did their phone conversation, and left. So, you know, I could go tier by tier, but it all depends on how much you expected somebody else to help you while you were on your phone, or whatever. So,
yeah, okay. I'm not the worst, but I'm definitely not the best. I am the walk in on phone, shop because I know where I'm looking for, and then leave. But I'm on my phone the whole entire time.
No, I hear you. I think it can be different too, though, because like, I work in a specific store, so like, you know, a lot of people need help, right? Like my first job that I can understand was at a Target, and if you do that at a Target, I don't think anybody cares, you know, because like if you're walking in with your friend, you'd be talking to your friend just as well. So if you've got a headphone and talking to your friend at a Target or a grocery store, totally different story than if you walk into, you know, a Sprint store or my suits and suit accessories store, right? Whatever else it might be. So like if you're walking in and needing something, that's where it's like really, really annoying, you know?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Do you have so how quickly, I guess, you started working in the retail industry before cell phones were really a thing, right? Trying to like tracking trajectory. Right?
I wouldn't say that I'm that old. I would say that by the time that I was in high school, most people had a cell phone, maybe not a smartphone.
Okay.
But smartphone, like the iPhone had been invented, because the iPhone is late 2000s, I want to say, right?
I think that's right. Hold on. iPhone 1.
Yeah, see what the release date on that puppy
2007.
is. Okay, so I was gonna say, yeah, so I would have been like 17. So but before that, we all had the flip phone, right? We had the Razor phone, you had the BlackBerry. So like, you still had other phones. Just smartphones weren't as popular. Like the BlackBerry was the only smartphone really that had like internet access. Otherwise, we were playing little poker games or just you were on your flip phone. So the cell phone was definitely around, and people were doing that. So.
This is was it pretty early on in like even working in Target that this started to like grind your gears?
No, because it would definitely, once I moved into the more like specific retail space or like the smaller tier, like less generic grocery store, more targeted sales, right? Or more specialized sales, I should say. Like that was kind of the point where it was like, oh, this is like real disrespectful, because especially the issue with it becomes that people will then like expect you to be helping them while they're on their phone, or like treating you like less than human. Yeah. That's like the big struggle in retail. Is getting treated as less than human, or as looked down on, essentially.
Totally.
Which doesn't happen too frequently these days, especially with all the young men that have no idea about the industry that I work in. Most people are very grateful for help, and I'm very lucky for that. But it's been a problem in retail in general for a long time. So,
do you have a story of when this really shone the brightest, where you like had a moment that you could almost make a skit out of it? It's so comical or aggravating.
Oh, many. I think number one was guy who walks over to the clearance section and is looking, and it's like, okay, sounds good. Some people do it because they don't want to get helped, right? That's another part of the story that I should bring up. Is I've had people walk in and fake being on their phone just because they don't want to be bothered. Yeah, and that is totally fine with me. Because like, if it's like, hey, if you're doing that and you're going to pretend to talk quietly or do whatever else because you just don't want to be bothered, then I love it. Great. That's a fine signal to me. Not the best signal, but it is a signal, because you could just say, hey, I don't want help today. I'm good. Thank you. And we would leave you alone. But there was a guy, does that on the phone the whole bit, goes to the clearance section, looks, and then yells and goes like, does anybody work here? Yeah. So obviously I'm not going to subject my employees to that. So I walk over and I'm like, hey, man, sorry, just you're on your phone there. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah. So he hangs up the phone and he's looking at clearance suits, and he's like, I got your promo on the mail here. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. So, you're in the right place. You can check these out. Let me get you your size, yada, yada, kind of help him out. And then he refuses to like let me like do his shopping. Like, there's not much I can tell you about the clearance section. Like, their prices is marked. Like, you have to try them all on. A lot of them are older. There's a lot of variation. There's not much consistency, right? It's not like shopping my generic on the rack stuff. So a lot of times it's more of a personal hunt to like, what are you going to like? Yeah. And it's also like the cheap stuff. So like, not a lot of people are going to want to help you. I was fine with it, but at the time we were commission based. So a lot of times it's like, hey, take your look here, see what you want, yada, yada. But no, once the whole 9 yards on getting help, which is fine, was not upset about it. And then when it comes time to ring him up, he brings out the flyer and he's like, oh, these are buy one, get one free, right? And I had to be like, oh, no, sir. Like these ones are clearance, so their price is marked. Yeah. And he's like, well, what about this flyer? And I'm like, well, sir, the front side says that this stuff is buy one, get one free. The back side is all in red and advertises clearance prices, right? I'm like, they're clearly very different things. In fact, at the bottom of this one, it says the promos are not combinable, right? Like, it literally tells you that here. And he goes, so then he just loudly screams, this is a bait and switch, and then takes his card and throws it at me. Yeah, throws his little card in my face and then just walks out. And
like his business card, or
no, the card that he had a little promo flyer that we had that was on cardstock, and threw it at my face as he left. And that was a creme de la creme. Didn't react because I wasn't sure if I was on candid camera.
Yeah, just looking around like, who's filming this?
And too many times in those situations, it's just like, is it worth it, right? Like, most of the time you're just like, all right, I'm just going to move on from this because it's just the best thing for your job and for everybody else. Like, you have to be the calm one in pretty much every situation when you're in that environment. But that was a first thing that is really, really angering to start off with, and then gets funnier as the years go on. Like.
It's amazingly terrible.
Just like, you just want to follow that guy and see what his next 8 decisions were, just to figure out how he's still even alive.
Social car accidents.
Right. Exactly right. Yeah. So to this day, it just gets funnier. But
Well, we're not going to top that. So we're going to head to our second ad break. But don't go anywhere, because when we get back, Chris is going to enter the lightning round. This podcast is sponsored by Puppets. One of the easiest things you can do with your hands and a light source in a dark room. Over human history, millions of people have used Puppets to great enjoyment. With limitless possibility and no upfront costs, Puppets will have your hands busy forever. Or until the power comes back on. So what are you waiting for? The power to go out? Oh yeah, right. Okay. Well, but when it does, we'll see you and your Puppets on the wall. And we are back. Chris, are you ready to enter lightning round?
The lightning round?
I've entered the Thunderdome, so I hope I'm ready.
All right, put however much time it takes to bake this cookie on the clock. Chris, is there a price for you to give up your passion forever?
No. Probably not.
Wise choice.
Yeah.
Make the food or do the dishes?
Do the dishes.
Did you ever cheat on a test in school?
Yes, I certainly have cheated on a test in school, but I would argue that that can take its own skill, you know?
Are you out of touch, or is it the children who are wrong?
The children are wrong, that's for sure.
Would you rather have your inner monologue sound like Gilbert Gottfried or Fran Drescher?
Oh, give me Gilbert Gottfried. I think Fran Drescher is a little more unpalatable than the old Gilbert.
Would you rather read the cue cards while wearing the crown or live in a hovel and speak your mind?
Whoa, what a question. I guess give me the cue cards for now.
Plane flight or road trip?
Road trip. Then you get the experience, you know?
Yeah, agree. Pineapple on pizza or fist fight?
Pineapple on pizza is to me worth avoiding a fist fight, so.
Is professional wrestling cool or lame?
Oh, depends on the year.
Right now?
Lame right now.
Stub your toe or make small talk with strangers?
Make small talk with strangers, yeah.
You're having the best day of your life. What happens next? Another amazing thing or something terrible?
Ooh, I mean, hopefully another amazing thing, you know?
Caramel or caramel?
Oh, it's probably different depending on the day for me. I was raised by rednecks, but my parents are from the north. So I say words like y'all, but I also say words like aunt instead of aunt. So I think I say caramel.
Right on.
Whatever
Nick
the barista
Cage
says, that's what I go with.
Nick Cage, best or worst ever?
Mediumist ever.
A day in or a night out?
Ooh. Also depends on the day or night out, but give me night out for my 20s and give me day in for my 30s.
Do you create your own thoughts or do you just listen to them?
Oh. I probably create my own thoughts.
Would you rather meet your mortal demise by a vicious werewolf attack or single zombie bite?
Vicious werewolf attack.
Correct answer. Bears, Beats, or Battlestar Galactica?
Bears.
Blood Simple or Reservoir Dogs?
What's the first one you said?
Blood Simple.
I don't know what that is, so give me Reservoir Dogs.
Spend the holidays with your in-laws or work a double shift at your least favorite job ever?
Oh, I would definitely rather, be in the talkie person. Give me the in-laws, bring them on.
Manual or stick shift?
Man, somebody taught me how to drive a stick shift one time, and I almost broke their car. So I will, I will take the automatic transmission if I can.
No, it's manual or stick shift.
Oh man, what's the difference?
There isn't one.
Okay.
It's how you pronounce it. It's the caramel of cars.
I want none of them. I want none of those.
All right. Could you eat 37 of your favorite food for $5,000 in a 1 hour time limit?
Wow. What are there constraints here? I have to eat 37 of my favorite foods?
37 in an hour.
Or standard packaging, serving size? What are we thinking?
Whatever it normally is for you.
Whatever it normally is for me. Man, the problem is my normal portion size is so large, but I think the answer to this question for the spirit of the question is yes. I can eat a lot of food, but maybe not in the portions that I normally eat. Maybe the portions that somebody else eats it though.
All right. Well, congratulations, you've survived the lightning round.
Yes, we did it. Woo!
But before we move on to your pies, I, like many listeners at home, I'm sure, would like to now know, what is your favorite food?
What is my favorite food?
That you think you could eat 37 of, but not in your normal portion allotment.
Oh gosh, probably like lasagna.
Damn.
Yeah.
37. I have respect for you, sir.
Yeah. I'm a significantly sized guy. I'm not the fattest guy, but I'm over 200 pounds.
Even like the one person cafeteria servings of lasagna, that's still a feat.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Hats off to you, sir.
No, for sure. Hey, being poor, that's one of those things. I can
ready to go
all
to
these eating
Chowtown.
challenges that I see, I'm like, wow, that's hard for you guys, you know? I'm like, I could put down
Food
anything.
and I get paid?
Yeah, I know. Right, exactly. Wait, you guys are getting paid?
What do I have to give up for this?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
All right, man. As prize, what lightning round question would you like to ask me and in turn be asked to future guests?
I believe I said, would you shave your head for $1,000?
I would have done it for a tenth that price.
Right.
I have shaved my head to save going to the barber because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I have a very well-shaped head. Thanks, Mom and Dad and God.
There you go.
So yeah, $1,000. I would do it with a rusty pair of scissors for a grand.
There we go. Yeah, I think the price depends on, one, how old you are, because the younger you are, I feel like your price goes up sometimes, but it just depends. The older I get, the less hair I have, the more that price goes down, Yeah. So
I have to trim 3 hairs for a grand?
Exactly right. Yeah. I have to shave a third of my head essentially. Well, then I guess So it depends on the question, but especially if you're asking a woman who might be more sensitive about that kind of thing.
Oh yeah. That needs a couple more zeros for a lot of the ladies.
Yep. Yeah, it means a little more.
All right, man. As we come to a close here, anything you want to plug, shout-outs you'd like to give, places people can find you or your content?
Yeah, you can find me tweeting very irregularly on the tweeters. You can find me at its_Christmas and Christmas has no T. I also have a weekly podcast where we talk magic cards. It is very, very specific, so I tell my friends and family because a lot of them want to listen. We talk about, we were very lucky to be on like the top 5% on Spotify this last year or something like that.
Whoa!
But it may have been 10%. It's whatever it was. It was 5%
Still,
for a particular category.
Awesome.
We were very lucky. Again, it took somebody else promoting us to get anywhere close because we're certainly
takes a village, man.
It takes a village. But that being said, it is very specific. It is about magic cards. It is about a particular format of magic cards and then the various things that surround it. We try and keep it topical. We get off topic a little bit just because the people like it. But it's like if there was a podcast about Donald Duck's shirt. Not just about Disney, not about Donald Duck, but about Donald Duck's shirt. It is called Crew 3, CREW3, and we talk about Pioneer.
I get that reference.
Yeah, the Pioneer format for Magic the Gathering, and you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. And then we also have a main Twitter account at Crew 3 Podcast, run by my friend and host Ruckman. Who runs it there. So you can find me on at its_Christmas, and I might have some more stuff coming for the people in the future, but it's all Magic the Gathering related there. So
all right, man, lastly before you run off into the sunset, do you have any friends or family that you'd like to nominate to come on the podcast so they too can suffer as you have today?
I'll talk to him and we'll see. So I may have to change this answer after the fact, but there's one young man that I know who's part of our Discord community for Magic the Gathering named Bridger, who I'll get you their contact info and see if they might want to come on. They've got their own small podcast that they do for Magic, and they're a good time. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chris. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, for being my guest today. And special thanks to my editor, Richard Ashford, and my composer, Joshua Gibbons. And thank you, yes, you listening at home or wherever you found time to appreciate this. Time is the most precious commodity we have, and I appreciate you spending yours with us. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, like, or just share it with a friend. Every little bit helps. Or if you already have and are out of episodes to listen to, don't worry. We put out a new episode every Monday at midnight on SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes at Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves Podcast. And a very special thanks are due to our patrons, Sibella Yellow. And if you'd like to join said illustrious ranks and have your name read aloud, just head on over to patreon.com/Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves Podcast. And remember, folks, if days are numbered and songs are sung, at the end of the day, I think we've all won. So please stick around, because great things have only just begun.